Hey everybody, Ty here. I hope everyone's doing well and has been enjoying their weekend here. It's been a little bit busy on this end, and it might be getting a little bit busier because, well, here you go. We did call the potential for a Friday slight risk in yesterday's video, so it's not all that surprising to see that. A little bit surprised to see Saturday, but not by all that much. However, I will also say that there was a little feature that I was watching along with what would end up becoming this Friday slight risk. I made a mental note of, but I didn't actually talk about it much in the video. You'll you'll hear me talk about it a little bit here actually. But that's also going to play a huge factor as to how the outcome could go if that ends up verifying. Obviously, at the 6 to 7 day range, we're not going to be too confident as into what may ultimately happen. There's a lot of unknown factors that still are playing into this system here. But as it stands right now, this is what we have currently. We have the Midwest and the Mississippi River region all the way down to the basin and the delta itself that have a 15% risk of severe weather on Friday. At this point, all hazards are possible, and if I scroll down actually and go through the synopsis, one thing that I've really honed in on in particular is higher probabilities will likely become necessary as well. So the Storm Prediction Center is thinking that this has the potential to be a higher end event, possibly, depending on parameters. Like I said, at this range, it's still kind of hard to hammer down just what exactly could be ahead here. But in any case, though, considering the strength of that bombed out cyclone that's going to be coming through here, basically having the strength of a Cat 2 hurricane as far as its pressure is concerned, it's not unreasonable to put something like this for the sake of precaution. But in any case, though, let's look at our day 7 threat to go along with it. This detail is going to have a lot to do with what I was talking about just a second ago. It's going to be an adjacent feature to that main bombed out cyclone that's going to be bringing the severe and the winter weather towards the Midwest and parts of the Mississippi River region. We'll have to be very watchful of this area because I do think that this may slightly go under the radar here, so to speak, as far as severe potential is concerned. There may be a chance that that also could end up getting a upgrade in risk, but at this time it's still pretty unknown. But in any case, let's go ahead and get into the model data here. It's going to be a little chaotic on this one because we're going to be comparing both models. I'm going to try to balance this in a manner in which we see everything at a very similar plot point in regards to time here. So what we have in the main part of the screen is the GFS. This is an American-made model, and then we have the European model on the bottom left corner here. It's a little tradition we do here for those of you that are a little bit newer to the channel. But when we get into events like this, model comparison is very important in my eyes. Looking at just one model doesn't always get you the right solution. But in any case, though, we're going to start out with the GFS here, and we're going to see this move along. You can see this low really starting to evolve here by the time we get into Friday afternoon. We'll do the same thing with the Euro here. We'll go to the almost the exact same time frame here. There is a little bit of a discrepancy here between the progression of the two, and this does matter in regards to the timing of said severe event. But one thing that I'm making note of here is also that the Euro's jet streak and its trough progression is a little bit slower because it's not evolving as quickly. So this trough here on the Euro is still strengthening based off this jet streak being a little bit more towards the central part of its axis instead of being off to the right. Usually by the time we see the jet streak off to the right, like how you are beginning to see it on the GFS, this is this storm system at its maximum strength. From this point, it would start to weaken. So we're kind of dealing with a little bit of discrepancy there. But in any case, as we continue to move forward here, this maintains its strength very well as we head into the following day. We're looking at the Euro, so keep your eyes on the bottom left corner. And then what I want you to pay attention to is this little secondary feature that popped up here. Now, I'm going to pull it up on the screen, but if you look at the GFS ensemble here, you'll see a little feature that was over towards South Mexico. This feature is going to play a large part in that potential day 7 slight risk as well. And the winds along that area where the risk is situated are pretty strong and definitely warrants its fair amount of attention too. I do think that depending on other parameters such as moisture return, warm sector, etc., that could be a potentially big day as well. GFS is actually going along better with that one. I almost feel like that is the more impressive look out of the two right now, in a way. Like just looking at the upper air map alone here, just at 500 millibars, which is pretty high up, by the way, I see a setup that could include mostly a line of storms, but I would not be surprised to see prefrontal cells if this ends up verifying. And that's the key term in all of this, if it verifies. Now let's go ahead and actually look in the mid levels of the atmosphere. And this is where things kind of get a little bit juicier. Because of that strong cyclone, obviously we know we're going to have strong winds across the board here in all levels of the atmosphere. What we look for when it comes to severe events in particular is turning of the winds with height. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to sequence the Euro towards that time frame, which will be 21Z, which would be about maybe 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern, 3 or 4 o'clock Central. And what I'm looking for is a motion that would be just a tiny bit different in regards to its direction from the 500 millibar region here. The winds are strong, so there is going to be speed shear. Basically, shear is turning or changing of wind speed or direction within height. So we have speed shear, and to a point I would say we have directional shear. It's not quite as prominent, but still will be sufficient enough to produce all modes of severe weather at this point. So pretty much already you can check off the kinematics box. For those of you that are a little bit more advanced with the weather, kinematics is basically the wind profile in lamest terms. But in any case, though, you can see that we have really strong winds here with the Euro and even stronger winds with the GFS. I think the GFS has the stronger cyclone situation here in comparison to the Euro. Of course, by this time frame, the Euro is still evolving. We're going to move this forward here because, like I said, we're pretty much, I wouldn't say a shoe-in in regards to the severe weather threat, but we're definitely a shoe-in for the strong winds here. Of course, we're getting into the kinematics in just a little bit. But let's move both of these forward into the following day, which would be Saturday. And you can see that there is a really prominent shortwave over here. The shortwave, basically, for those of you that are newer, is where we see these little contours right here. Right along where you see these little contour lines and you see this little ripple or wave in there, that's our shortwave. And this is usually going to be the point of interest where we see our storms fire. That's what GFS is showing us, and then this is what Euro is showing us. Notice again, the time frames are a little bit different due to the trough progressions on the models here. Euro's a little bit slower than GFS, but in either case, though, I see a fair case for severe weather being possible on Saturday across the deep south here. Just where it will end up setting up shop, if this doesn't again verify, is still within question here. So let's go ahead and look to another key component to severe weather, and that's low-level jet. And I've lost my spot right here. There we go. But we'll get the GFS and we'll get the Euro on the same page here, if I can get them to stop moving. But we'll start with the Euro first in this case, since one's stacked up. But in any case, what I'm looking for when I look for the low-level jet is a motion that is very similar to the south to north frame here. And you look at these little wind barbs to find that here. So whenever you see them kind of pushing up in this direction here, it's always something to keep an eye on. So again, like I said, we do have a good case of directional shear here. Like I said, that was pretty much a shoe-in. And we have some really strong low-level jet winds. We're up to about 50, 60 knots pretty easily. There could be some pockets where we even get up to about 65 knots or greater even. Just looking at the Euro, and the GFS isn't very far behind on that either. Although it seems to favor the potential for a more northern mode event. The southern mode is still prominent, but of course the question with this will also be, will we have enough moisture? Will we have a broad enough warm sector for these storms to really grow and mature into those supercells that we would all be keeping an eye out for? Now, as we head into the following day here, you can see that we do have a really prominent low-level jet that pops up later into the evening across the deep south here, which again leads me to think that all hazards would also be possible for Saturday as well. Now, The GFS in regards to Saturday is looking even crazier than what the Euro is. And in recent time, I would even go as far as to say that the Euro has been usually the more aggressive of the two models with storm systems. But the fact that GFS is showing something too to go along with it definitely kind of makes me raise a brow, to say the least. Forgive me for trying to make my best Dwayne Johnson impression. Sellout. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into just what exactly that low is going to look like as well. Because I did make a big deal of this yesterday, and that's this low pressure here is insane here. So across two of the most trusted models here, we have a 974 millibar low, which again is basically almost the equivalent to a major hurricane, very close to it. Usually about 980 is about category 2, about high end category 2, category 3. GFS has got it even stronger. It's a slight downtrend from what I saw recently, where I even saw 968s here, but still across the board, 971 millibar storm is crazy. Like I said, regardless of whether we end up getting severe weather or not, the amount of wind energy that the storm system itself is going to be bringing out is going to be insane. And tomorrow, of course, we'll be talking more about the wintry side of things. We're going to more or less take our first looks. I don't think the wintry side of things is going to be all that intense beyond the blizzard potential. As far as snow accumulations, I'm kind of skeptical on that. I don't think we're going to see anything too out of sorts, but of course we'll have to see what the models end up doing overnight tonight before we get into the details there. So now we've looked at that and we've seen the peak pressure for both of these systems. Now we get into the most important detail, and that is our moisture return here. Now the Euro has been extremely aggressive with the moisture return. However, the contingency is, will this moisture make it further up towards the north? Because based off of what I've been seeing off both of these models here, the wind profile seems to be the best a little further off towards the north here. If we can continue to get that ascent of moisture up towards the St. Louis area and beyond, oh boy, we could have some problems here. I do think that there could also be a cold core event that goes all the way up into Iowa at this point. There's some, like I said, there's questions to be had with this, but in either case, we do have a better warm sector than what we did the last event as of right now. But originally, to those of you that were watching around that time frame, one thing that you'll remember is the warm sector looked better within this range, within the 6-day range. By the time we got towards the event, however, kind of started to fall off. But we'll have to see how this pans out. We're going to, of course, be doing updates almost daily on this. Eventually, within the 72-hour range, it will be daily for sure. But in any case, though, it does look like we do have a little something to work with. Just how far north it goes is going to be the key question. So, main thing to look for, again, moisture, warm sector is going to be anywhere we have dew points of 60 degrees or greater. If you have a warm sector of about 70 degrees with the surface temperatures or air temperature, then we might have something to talk about here. But right now, this range, still a lot of unknowns. But a big talking point also, and again, this is kind of another thing that I've made mention of with the last storm system that kind of, when things kind of fell off, was the amount of instability that's available. Now, I've been hearing a lot of talk about this because of how much instability is being shown on the global models here. So that's a look at the GFS in the main part of the screen. Then the Euro is pretty aggressive too in this case here. So, like I said, I'm pretty interested in seeing how this pans out here. The southern mode definitely has more instability with the Euro, but the northern mode isn't lacking either. Usually, I would say the threshold for severe weather can really be about 750, 800. 1,000 is usually a solid number. We're exceeding that over towards what I would call the cold core sector potentially. But over here towards the southern mode, we're starting to get to 2,000, 3,000 joules per kilogram in regards to the Cape here, which would be considered almost an explosive environment for severe weather. Make the comparison to the GFS here, the sector of instability is much more broad, and as a result, I would be concerned with a potentially large-scale event if this ends up verifying. Like I said, way too many uncertainties at this range to really say that this is a shoo-in, that this is going to happen, this is going to be mother all outbreak. So if anyone is watching additional weather channels, be wary of those who do that. this storm does have a high ceiling. I will say that much. I'm not going to downplay that. But in any case, though, we do need to still remember that there's no need to panic at this range. We're trying to keep you weather aware here. So as we go into the following day, instability is a little less certain here. So that's going to be one potential limiting factor with this. The overall moist sector at this region here, we're going to go back and make sure that we have a good look at it. There's still plenty of moisture available at this point. And then also, I'm going to scroll back down because I don't know why it came up again. And wow, it just completely reset on us. But as we go into the following day here, we still have a decent moist sector available. So again, like I said before, excuse me, like I said before, does seem like there's pretty good potential in Saturday as well. I do expect more of a linear mode with this, but I still wouldn't rule out some prefrontal cells being possible given the kinematic profile here at this range. So let's get into the instability for Saturday. Again, for the euro here. Like I said, euro's not showing quite as prominent of a sector of instability here, but even so, there's still a few spots that are already showing 1,000 joules per kilogram. As we get closer into range, if the area of interest uptrends any, we're going to see this number go up here. So I'm going to be paying extra close attention to this region also because I live around here too. So I'm going to be extremely invested in that as well, along with these areas further off towards the west in the days ahead here. So last but not least, of course, we're going to take a look at what that severe weather time frame looks like. Also get a look at what the snowfall may end up looking like towards this region here. We'll get into greater detail as far as the winter aspect is concerned a little bit later. Interesting thing to make note of here is there is a little bit of a warm there is a little bit of a notch right here where we get some warm air and we could get some mixing here. We could get some rain and snow. But as far as the sector is concerned for snow, it just seems like moisture is kind of lacking towards the back end of this event here, though. As we go forward, it does look like we do get a chance for some snow. I don't expect a lot in the way of totals, like I mentioned before. It's really going to have a lot more, really the biggest impact is going to be blowing snow, wind, maybe blizzard conditions as a result. Whiteout conditions more so than anything else right now. But of course, as we know, models can uptrend. So we look at the euro here, it's pretty much a similar deal here. So not as significant of a winter threat as what we've seen in previous time, but definitely something that we still need to watch for. Maybe potential for some freezing rain as well. So again, plenty to keep an eye on. We may see some refreezing before all is said and done on Saturday evening up towards the north. All while in the meanwhile, as far as our severe weather event is concerned here, Euro kind of has these storms firing up later into the evening and into the overnight. That timing could lead to some limiting, but we'll have to see how things progress throughout the evening. Warm sector does kind of diminish a little bit right after sunset for this region, so definitely something to keep an eye on. GFS here, storms fire a little bit earlier, as we mentioned before. Trough progressions kind of varying between these two models just a little bit. But right around sunset will be when these storms would end up firing towards the region here. So this would be about maybe 8 o'clock, I would say, at this point. Then as we get into the following day, we get a big old line of storms here. Damaging wind potential seems very high at this point from the GFS here. By the time we get towards Saturday evening, we'll watch this weekend and clear out. So areas further off towards the east, towards South Carolina, I wouldn't be too concerned as much. But in any case, though, when we get towards Saturday on the Euro, this is where things kind of get a little bit interesting here. Very messy looking convective mode at this point, but it does look like some prefrontals will be possible along with the main line itself. So again, a lot we're going to be keeping track of over the next few days. So going to be an awful lot of weather talk on the channel over the next few days. Make sure you guys are staying tuned. Make sure you guys have that notification bell on for future updates because there will be plenty coming. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, Tired Metalhead Weatherman signing.